All right, take 3. First rule of this channel, we not talk about the channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 2. This is going to be the proactive fantasy football waiver wire channel show, and not the reactive one. The reactive one, I did a lot of that stuff yesterday in Chasing the Dragon. If you're going to be into that, I don't know how much I'm going to talk about when I get down to it. Week 2, lots of injuries and a lot of guys to panic on. A lot of guys that, like, generally speaking, you should know what you bought coming into the season, and if guys are going to be not that consistent, then like there's no need to panic on it. If you're buying a guy to be, at the top of his range of outcomes, and we're like talking about like Marvin Harrison or like Drake London, like if you went out and you overpaid on certain guys and they're not returning, like you should panic on that when it comes down to that. And in general, I talked about this last year. If you're worried about this, I had a comment about like, what do you do if you're 0-2 and you're last in points? Know what you drafted. Know what you're waiting on until the end of the year. What guys that should be producing now. In general, you need to do bad trades, which means you got to overpay somebody to do a trade. Get guys off your roster so you can go mine the waiver wire, because that's how you can win your leagues. Like, remember last year, Joe Flacco, fantasy playoff MVP. Then you're looking at Puka, Kyron Williams, Nico Collins, and Sam Laporta basically all going undrafted. You could go out and you can get those guys. You could put together that team that'll give you the opportunity. This isn't real football. This is fantasy football. Like, you can go like 0-7 and then rattle off 7 in a row because you put together the right team off the waiver wires and trades at that point. So again, like, know who you got and know what you need to package together to make a trade so good that somebody has to take a look at it. In the case of like, I'm going to give you 2 really good guys for a guy that you aren't quite valuing correctly. And that's how I would generally go after it. Like a couple of years ago, like when I went out, I got like Josh Jacobs in trade. I got Antonio Gibson years back in a trade, his rookie year. Just generally going like, hey man, I will give you a lot more than this guy's worth at this time, because I can wait a little bit for that guy to be the guy that he's going to be. That's what you're generally looking at from a fantasy perspective of how to get yourself out of a hole, is take your okay pieces, put them together, and go get another okay piece that is trending in the right direction from a statistical standpoint. That's what I want to be looking at. Like guys that like someone's like, that guy's ugly. I don't care about giving them up, and you're going to give me these 2 pieces that still like theoretically have like league winning upside. Like, just know when to move on. Again, I will miss out on guys like Devin Achane because I got rid of him a week early, but I have a lot of roster churn, so I can make sure that I have the right guys when they're trending in the right direction. So if you just want to get out of here and not listen to me prattle on more, the guys that I would be tracking on right now as theoretical stashes, you're looking at Jermaine, Burton, and Erick all for the Bengals. I probably would be a little bit interested on buying pieces of the Panthers on the cheap, because again, Andy Dalton's taken over, and it can't be any worse than it was at that point. And then roster your cuffs. In particular, the guy that no one's talking about would be like Trey Benson, and we'll get into some of that stuff down the line. Now, remember, with the waiver wire, right now we're in the arms race. So again, like, I want to be putting guys that have roads to win leagues. When I look at the guys that I'm picking up off the waiver wire, I got to tell myself, like, can this guy win me or somebody else a league? If the answer is generally no, then I will not be that aggressive on them. So some of the guys like your Carson Steeles, like, I don't know how many opportunities we're going to have for like this vacated bell cow. And again, like, doesn't matter what I think, doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter what your team, your league mates think, doesn't matter what the expert think. Is there that vacated opportunity? That's generally what I look at and go like, okay, yeah, I'll go after that guy, and I'll be a little aggressive on that. So moving on, and this generally goes from alphabetical, starting with 49ers because they're a number. In this case, I'm not saying that Jordan Mason is not a league winner. What I'm saying is you want to know the difference between like a unicorn, legendary outcome season, and volume-based RB2s. And volume-based RB2s are going to have a lot of value this year. But Kyle Juszczyk, he is in the conversation for like streamer, low-end RB2 because of that, especially in your Devils leagues, because of that, like 3 targets, 5 targets. He's going to be on the field like 50 to 60% of the time. He is inheriting the CMC role within the offense of the receiving work. Now, why is this important? Because Debo is down for multiple games, a couple games, whatever that means. Like, we'll find out Sunday if he goes on IR. Vacated targets tend to go to running backs and first, and then tight end second. So this is an upgraded George Kittle. And Kyle Juszczyk, like, he falls in the end zone. He gets a slight uptick in work, and he's fantasy relevant. So, one of the best football players of all time, Kyle Juszczyk, he's going to have the opportunity to be fantasy relevant because of the Debo injury and the CMC injury at this point. Now, Brandon Ayuk, like your guess is as good as mine, is when he decides he wants to play up to $30 million a year. But right now, like you need something in the range of like wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, like Jawan Jennings. They paid him to be like one of the better like wide receiver 3s in the league. And that's what you're probably going to be getting. He's going to step in and probably be in the range of like 60 to 80% snaps going on. Now, Bears, I did watch some of the tape, did watch or listen to some of the pundits. In general, you want two things out of a quarterback. You want a game manager and you want a gunslinger, because he's got to be a gunslinger sometimes and he's got to manage games some other times. So with Caleb Williams, one of the things that he really is not is a game manager. So the two things that are going on with the Bears: bad offensive line play, because they've been putting their capital into like skill position players and not into the offensive line. And the other thing is Caleb Williams is trying to do Caleb Williams things. And sometimes you just got to give yourself what the defense gives you. And that means like he's not going to be good from a fantasy perspective, but at least he's not going to do what he's doing. Now, right now, I want no parts of the Bears offense. So in general, with DeAndre Swift, 66% snaps, 5 targets, generally what I would say, yeah, but like I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get the score. And he's generally not getting any of the gravy, which is the rushing work. So in this case, you're looking at Khalil Herbert at 9% snaps. Roshan was a healthy scratch again. Travis Homer's at 29% snaps. Yeah. You want to know like bad trade, package him and somebody else and just get them off your roster. Because at this point, I don't know when and how the Bears are going to get better. Now, Keenan Allen was out with a heel. DJ Moore was at 99% snaps, 10 targets. Yeah, whatever. Again, if I can't predict it and I don't know what he's going to give me, like DJ Moore's fine. He's probably still hovering around the range that you paid for him. Rome was at 94% snaps. So like, as long as Keenan Allen out, he's going to have a puncher's chance. You should flip when it comes to like Cole Kmet. 77% snaps. Gerald Everett was down at 36% snaps in this game. So sometimes I don't need to know how the sausage is made when it comes down to the Bengals. With Andre Yosivas, like two receiving touchdowns, only 7 yards. So again, at this point, I would probably be getting off this train. Whatever there was to be predictive, something else is occurring. So Jermaine Burton, he goes from 8% snaps to 16% snaps, 67 air yards, 2 for 1 for 47. So again, I'm not saying stash. What I'm saying is I'm thinking about stashing. So at this point, like with him, like sometimes that snap share doesn't go up linearly, and sometimes the opportunities don't go up along with it. But not right now. After 2 weeks, he is going to have the more valuable usage. Maybe Yosivas is going to stay somewhat fantasy relevant, but at this point, like after 2 weeks, disappointing. The offense, some of the offenses that we think are going to be good are going to be bad. Also, scoring, passing are down across the league. So that expecting that offenses are going to be able to support more guys is probably going to be down. That's why those like volume-based RB2s are going to be much more valuable than we thought. And again, intelligence is the ability to adapt, to see the pattern before everybody else and start making those changes. In this case, getting time to get off Andre Yosivas, time to start thinking about like Jermaine Burton. Now, Mike Gesicki, I talked about this last year when we were breaking down the Bengals, how they use their tight ends. They tend to use all their tight ends. In this case, like Mike Gesicki, 9 targets on 47% snaps. Now, Erick, the 4th round draft pick, like he's athletically gifted. He was up to 52% snaps in this game with four targets. Now, Tanner Hudson, like the receiving tight end, he was active 0% snaps in this game. Drew Sample, the blocking tight end, 52% snaps. So again, thinking about stashing Jermaine Burton, and I'm thinking about stashing Erick right? Now, this may not be the week that they spike, but this may not be the week that they spike either, based off of what we see all that stuff. If the Bengals tight end, if they have a tight end that start getting 70% snaps and we can start getting like 6 targets a game, yeah, now we can start talking about the Bengals having a fantasy relevant tight end. Mike Gesicki doing 47% snaps, not really knowing where those targets are going to go. T. Higgins is going to come off. Eventually, T. Higgins is going to be healthy. Yosivas is going to be there. Jermaine Burton is trending in the right direction. If there isn't a tight end that's going to be on the field to get enough of those targets, especially in the red zone, I just don't know how they're going to do it for you. So, like, this is probably just a 1 week thing when it comes to Gesicki, if you're worried about that. Now, Ray Davis and the Bills. In general, this was a blowout. So the 31% snaps that went up, like we were expecting the snaps to potentially go up. It went up. It was a blowout. Ty Johnson was still used on 3rd downs. So again, like, my expectations, I don't really think this goes one way or another when it comes down to that. And then what's his face? James Cook was only at 47% snaps in the blowout. So like it's going to be difficult to kind of guess on all these guys. And we'll talk about Galton Kincaid in a second. Now, Keon Coleman was 91% snaps. Mac Hollins was 71% snaps. Mike Hollins was probably on the field to block because he's really good at football, like Kyle Juszczyk. Khalil Shakur, he's probably going to be the safest guy to own in all this. 69% snaps, 5 for 54. They just may spread this around, and it just may not matter. And the only guy to own would probably be Dalton Kincaid. Now, again, 42% snaps. He got kicked in the head. He missed like 20 snaps because of that. Then he came back in the game. Dawson Knox in a blowout was in that 53% snaps. And again, know what you were buying when you got Dalton Kincaid. You're buying a guy that theoretically could be a unicorn. You were also buying a guy that could have just been one of those tight end or top 10 tight ends. He's probably going to have his spike weeks. He's going to score some touchdowns. Hopefully you didn't overpay for him. I didn't overpay for him in either of my leagues, so I'm not really worried about him in general. Going back to the Bengals, because I missed this. Zach Moss, 80% snaps. That running back battle seems to be over. And Chase Brown doesn't have standalone value, probably still has cuff value, doesn't have standalone value. And Zach Moss, I don't know, like outside of like RB2 land, I don't know how much I would super be interested in him. Broncos, not really interested in any of this stuff. Maybe Bo Nix can turn around. Did see this is a little interesting. We're following, this is more after waiver stuff from last year. Little Jordan Humphrey, he was up to 77% snaps, 5 for 4 for 50, 36 yak yards, only 25 air yards. So again, like I don't think this is necessarily going to be consistent. If you're wondering about Marvin Mims, 15% snaps, Troy Franklin, 20% snaps. Josh Reynolds was at 67% snaps, which was down. He led everybody. Yeah, I'm not interested in anything. Vele was out with ribs. Jaleel McLaughlin, only 28% snaps. He only had 3 carries. This offense is kind of a mess. I don't know how they win anybody in any leagues at this point. So, I'm just going to move on. So this is a little fantasy relevant. This is really interesting to me. So Jameis Winston was coming in on quarterback sneaks for the Browns. Now, why is this fantasy relevant? Well, if you're holding on to a certain amount of value with Deshaun Watson, well, I'll bet that Jameis Winston vultures a couple rushing touchdowns from Deshaun Watson at this point, which is going to lower his overall value. So, yeah, I would like to see Jameis Winston get the offense, but at this point, like Deshaun Watson fantasy is not fantasy relevant. Jerome Ford, this is a little difficult. 44% snaps this game. Pierre Strong, who looked like the handcuff, he goes down. 38% snaps to go to Devontae Foreman. They go out and they sign Royce Freeman to the practice squad, and there's a redundancy between Royce Freeman and Deontay Foreman at this point. So the thing that made Jerome Ford interesting after week 1 is you're going to get receiving work to go along with red zone opportunity, and then the gravy that goes along with it. Well, all he got this last week was the gravy. He didn't get the receiving work, and he didn't get the red zone work. And they're bringing in guys that are like dirty work backs in Deontay Foreman, who could do goal line stuff, and Royce Freeman, who can pass block. So this is like really moving Jerome, or taking the possibility that you're going to have like some type of league-winning Jerome Ford, and probably doesn't move him out of the RB2 range, but definitely like is going to cap his ceiling with all the stuff that's going on. Now, I did see some stuff with Amari Cooper, his 8 targets. Some of his lack of production is from drops. I did watch the tape on that. Again, going after this stuff. I'm not really interested in anybody else in this offense at this point. Like, yeah, I would probably be selling Amari Cooper. Yeah, I would also be taking him off someone's hand. The 9 targets, 8 targets, if those can actually land, may push him back into some type of like week-to-week usage. So like you do you when it comes to that one. Talk about this in Chasing the Dragon. Sometimes you got to be able to see the pattern that the writing is on the wall. And if the Buccaneers are not going to rush for touchdowns, and Baker Mayfield is either going to rush for them himself or he's going to throw a passing touchdown, sometimes you just got to be ahead of the curve. He may be this year's Jordan Love, or this year's Baker Mayfield also, or Brock Purdy. And you just got to know that like guys like Patrick Mahomes may be streamable, and they may not be these like elite level guys in Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold's, and Derek Carr. They may be the guys. So like know who you bought. If you bought like your Anthony Richardson, you bought your Kyler Murray's, you bought your Jaden Daniels, probably not going to be interested in these guys. You went out there, you bought your like Jordan Loves, your CJ Stroud, your Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he might end up chasing those touchdowns because I don't know how sometimes those how those other guys are going to win you a league at that point. Now, Rachaad White, I'm not that interested in Bucky Irving because neither of these guys were efficient in the rushing game. Bucky Irving as standalone value, probably not there, still a cuff, And if you're blocking, you're cuffing, or you need a 1 week rental with who knows what's going on with Rashad White's groin injury in this case going on. Now, in general, moving on, like Chris Godwin, probably going to be in the conversation for league winner right now. The main thing that I don't know if is going to remain consistent is going to be the touchdowns, but the 8 targets and 83 receiving yards week 1, 117 week 2, that seems like it's going to be relatively consistent. So I don't know who's going to be selling Chris Godwin, but I would be interested. Jalen McMillan stays up there and snaps, like 80% snaps, or 79, I should say. So, like, yeah, we could still have that conversation when it comes to that, but the pecking order does appear to be very, very similar. And we saw this a little bit with like Trey Flowers last year, or Trey Palmer last year. All right, James Conner, not going to be an RB1, but again, we talk about those volume-based RB2s are going to be like really special this year, and he's going to be like very solid. So 62% snaps, 21 attempts, 122, 1 touchdown, fumbled another one at the goal line that Trey McBride did fall on. What's going to hurt him is the lack of consistent design receiving work and, overall snaps. So, if you could do both those things together, you'd have like an RB1. In general, you're still going to have like those James Conner weeks where he's going to do like, 15 for 40 and have like 2 checkdowns, which is going to give you like a sub 40 degree day. You can see that he did that last year. So that's still going to be on the cards. Part of that is going to be because they're ramping up Trey Benson. So again, 13% snaps, 33% snaps. Part of that may be because of the blowout with the Rams. But the other thing is like that trustworthy work with DeMercado, that went away a little bit in week 2 because they didn't need him because there was a blowout. So he only had 2 carries last game, 21% snaps week 1, 2 for 2 for 26. So again, even if I'm cuffing Trey Benson, and I would highly advise either cuffing James Conner or stashing him at the bottom of a bench as a lottery ticket, you're probably going to have capped RB2. And this is what I kind of thought at the beginning of the season. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., a guy in my main money league, did bench him after week 1. And this is why I said, like, don't panic on guys. Probably going to take 3 weeks to kind of figure out what we got. At the price that he was going at, I was like, yeah, he's probably capped out at the edge of his range of outcomes. Again, you should know what you're buying, and you're going to buy a spike week like this from time to time with a guy like him. Now, how consistent this is going to be, I don't know. But in general, like, yeah, shouldn't have been panicking after week 1. Now, Trey McBride, he's probably one of like only 2 guys that's going to be unicorn. Right now, him and Brock Bowers, so 83% snaps, 6 for 6 for 67. I did see that they're running like a lot of like 2 tight ends, which is good for him. A lot of 3 tight ends. That's how Marvin Harrison scored a touchdown. So again, the more matchups that we can get with Trey McBride, to more opportunities, like that's good coaching. So again, like, yeah, probably would be buying if I get a hold of like, if I get, Travis Kelce and a bag of chips for Trey McBride, if I could do that, something along those lines, like, yeah, he looks like he may be one of the guys to go after. All right, Chargers. Now, I talked about this in Chasing the Dragon. If they're only going to throw the football 20 times a game, as long as like, half those targets are going like Ladd McConkey, well, unfortunately for me, half those targets may be going to Quentin Johnston. So depends on what you need. The question you should be asking with Quentin Johnston is, how many weeks is it going to take before you trust him to put him in your lineup? If he's just going to be clogging the bottom of your bench, probably should be someone else's problem. And I've talked about this with my co-managers, like Ladd McConkey. The big issue that I have with Ladd McConkey right now, why he's a bubble guy when it comes to like, cutting him or keeping him, is, when am I going to play him? And I was looking at the schedule, and if he's not going to get 7 targets a game, I don't know how many like games that he's going to get where he's going to have like week 1 where he gets 7 targets. And again, 7 targets and a touchdown. The air yards were there this week, a little bit better, but in general, like that 49% snaps, that was because it was a blowout. You're looking at like Semi Vakoku was at like 41% snaps. And if you're like, who? Exactly. Because they were just rolling other guys like Darius Davis on the field to not hurt their main guys. So Josh Palmer with that knee and Ladd McConkey not being on the field because it was a blowout, well, the Chargers might be in a lot of those ugly script games, and they're not throwing the football. And if the guy that's going to get six targets a game is going to be Quentin Johnston over Ladd McConkey, well, Quentin Johnston is going to be like low-end wide receiver 2, nice wide receiver 3 at that point. So like it just depends on what you need. I don't know how many people need like wide receivers. That's going to be the problem when it comes down to that. Now, J.K. Dobbins, I'm not going to say he's not going to be league winner at the price that he was going at, but, and again, there's always a but, and everything before but doesn't matter. With 46% snaps and no real receiving work, you are going to get certain weeks where you get Gus Edwards, 18 attempts, 59 yards, no touchdowns. So that's still going to be in the range of outcomes for J.K. Dobbins. Probably not going to be able to keep this insane efficiency going on. Not going to have the receiving work to give you a floor. and then you're looking for him to fall in the end zone or somehow magically keep this high rushing efficiency up. Now, am I saying that you should trade him? No, probably not, because where you're using him in your lineup is probably not an RB1. It's probably an RB2 or a flex or something like that. So I'm okay with that when it comes down to that. Now, moving on to the Chiefs. And again, if the passing volume's not there and the passing touchdowns aren't there, you're not going to get like legendary outcome league MVP Patrick Mahomes season, especially if he continues to turn the football up. Not going to have enough nimbly bimbly to move the needle. So unless you're going to get like somehow 41 touchdowns to go along with 5,200 yards passing and another 358 and 4 touchdowns, he's streamable. That's the long and short of Patrick Mahomes. So again, going after some of these other guys, especially like Patrick Mahomes, bag of chips, and give me Sam Darnold at this point, I'm happy. So like that's how I'd be rolling with that. Now, Isaiah Pacheco, short story long. So he breaks his fibula. He goes in for surgery 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going to imagine it's like done for the year at this point, because you got to imagine like it ain't 6 to 8 weeks. And then like, he's getting full bell cow again at that point. So again, this 80% snaps week 1, maybe you're looking at Carson Steele getting that down the line. Now, again, the bigger thing with Carson Steele, you got to ask yourself, like, what's it worth to you to be wrong in this case? Because like, how many other opportunities are we going to have a guy step into a league-winning type of opportunity? That's generally more what the question is with Carson Steele. So it doesn't matter. 4-6 guy, 4-8 guy, doesn't matter to me. Am I going to get like 15 to 20 opportunities a game? Maybe. And that's more what I would be worried about, like if you're spending on a Carson Steele down the line. Now, again, I talked about this in Chasing the Dragon. It may not happen week 1. You're buying him to see what happens over the next 3 weeks. So remember that when you're wondering about how much to put in for him. So would not be surprised if P. Ryan's role increases for the next couple of weeks. And then Carson Steele has to prove what he is worth at that point. He's got to earn the job. This Kareem Hunt signing doesn't bother me. He went to the practice squad. Doesn't mean he's going to be on the active roster. Probably will be on the active roster because they need to fill that roster spot. But down the line, like usage-wise, there's a redundancy with him and P. Ryan. There's actually a redundancy when it comes to Steele, but like, Steele is very, very much going to play football in a certain way that like Kareem Hunt and Samaje Perine, I don't think have in their tank anymore. Rashid Weiss, another guy that I'm not going to say like probably is a league winner. If you bought Travis Kelce at this point, like know what you're getting. Father Time's undefeated. We were already speculating on whether Rashid Rice was going to be the focal point of the passing game. He looks like he's going to be the guy in this case. So yeah, Xavier Worthy, the news with Hollywood Brown going on IR, you're going to get a boom bust guy. Like that shouldn't surprise you. If you played him this week and you didn't get the spike week, I don't know what to tell you. You should be rolling him out there expecting that there's going to be a certain amount of spike weeks that you're going to get out of him. And then the final thing is Noah Gray, the tight end 2 for the Chiefs. He was still at like 57% snaps. This one I'm rolling down in my notes. Jared Wiley, the 4th round draft pick out of TCU. There's a little bit of speculation that we were talking about, like this may be the Travis Kelce replacement. 20% snaps week 1. Hey, what's that mean? Don't know. 18% snaps week 2, 1 target. So try kind of track this guy to understand, like, does he have a particular role in the offense? Is he going to eat into anybody? This is just something to be paying attention to down the line. All right, Colts. This is another one. Should I panic? Well, it's week 2. You were buying, well, I was, because I'm an Anthony Richardson owner. I was buying a guy that I knew was going to give me a certain amount of spike weeks to go along with some like sub 40-degree days, because he's going to have some turnover and he's going to have some accuracy issues. So again, know what you're getting when you buy the guy. He's still going to probably have a lot more 27-point games. I don't know how many weeks that you're really buying Anthony Richardson to be a 40-degree day. Like, should know what you're getting. The interesting thing when it comes to the Colts, 52% snap to Jonathan Taylor. Now, the other opportunities in the Colts backfield, 3 went to Trey Sermon on 32% snaps, and 16% snaps to Tyler Goodson, 1 target. So mostly this is like Derrick Henry usage, where when he's on the field, he's getting the football. When he's not on the field, well, he's not getting the football. Without design receiving work and this offense being inconsistent, yeah, you're looking at another like volume-based RB2, and you do what you want. Like I was kind of staying away from this because I kind of thought this was going to happen. Again, putting him together with a bag of chips and seeing if someone else will get him off your roster. Michael Pittman, I would maybe advise doing the same thing when it comes to that, but, and here's the asterisk, 7 targets this week, 140 air yards. So again, when we're talking about like certain things landing and certain things not landing, like 8 targets, 7 targets. Generally speaking, Anthony Richardson has a better offensive line than Caleb Williams does. So like, yeah, you're still going to have some weeks with Michael Pittman. I don't know what you're buying when you went out and got Michael Pittman, probably like in the 3rd or 4th round of your draft. Adonai Mitchell, he was down 59% snaps, only 88 air yards this week. And the big, caveat to this is when does Josh Downs come back, and does he eat into Adonai Mitchell, or does he eat into Alec Pierce? And at this point, like if you're chasing the dragon on Alec Pierce, I understand. I don't know how many more spike weeks he's going to have. He only had 2 last year. He may have gotten the 2 out of the way right now. But again, if you're chasing touchdowns and you're chasing usage, again, I think I have written down he had 106 air yards. So like it's still there. His usage is still going to be there. And it just depends on like, how long you can ride this. If you roll them in your lineup week 1 or week 2, yeah. If you just want to, gamble again that you can get something in week 3, like I understand that. Like probably other guys I would be looking at. These guys tend to grow on trees. That was the argument about like Trey Flowers or Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman is like the same guy as Alec Pierce at this point. Jaden Daniels, yeah, like he's gonna have passing touchdowns eventually. Hopefully, I would be buying B-Rob or not selling him if you have him at this point. 60% snaps, 17 carries, another 3 targets, and that's to go along with like these. Him and Austin Eckler split red zone opportunities. So B-Rob had 4 red zone carries and 2 targets, and Eckler had 4 red zone carries. Now they were 0 for 6 in the red zone as an offense, but right now this is an offense that looks better and better every week. Don't have a lot to say about Terry McLaurin, 8 targets, but as you can see, 6 receptions, 22 yards, not a lot of air yards this week. Luke McCaffrey, consistent with snap share, 61% snaps, 56% snaps. Brown was at 69% snaps. So like he moved up to the wide receiver 2 role in this one. Again, like the expectation that we may not be able to see this. So like I'm not stashing Luke McCaffrey. If I picked him up, I'm not going to feel bad about dropping him. So like the expectation that he was going to get more targets, more snap share, the offense would get better. Offense, it does look like it's going to be okay. It just doesn't mean that they're going to be good at this point. Some of the other tight ends that are out there, Zach Ertz, down slightly in snap share, 71 to 65, but did have another 4 targets for 62 yards, and he did have 51 air yards. So like the guy that was going vertically down the field this week was Zach Ertz. I don't know how consistent that's going to be. Now, Cowboys, I don't want any part of this backfield. Remember, they got Dalvin Cook on the practice squad. Eventually, you got to imagine that Dalvin Cook will get activated, if for no other reason than to sell tickets. So Zeke, you're buying the possibility of a guy that was going to fall in the end zone, 40% snaps. Rico Dowdle, again, even if you're buying Rico Dowdle, I think that Dalvin Cook is going to eventually show up and eat into a certain amount of usage, even if he's the best back out of the bunch. But this would be the guy to be buying. If you're into that thing, remember this is a blowout. So Jalen Tolbert's 86% snaps, 9 for 6 for 82 is probably not something that's going to happen again next week. This is a little interesting. Luke Schoonmaker, 40% snaps, 6 for 6 for 43, and it probably doesn't matter. Even the high usage on the low snaps probably doesn't matter because Jake Ferguson is trending towards playing this week. Okay, Dolphins, Tua IR with a concussion. This is something that we were already hearing was going to happen. Skylar Thompson, I'm going to go and say go and be charitable and say serviceable. They went out and they signed Tyler Huntley from formerly of the Ravens, and then he was on had a cup of coffee with the Browns. Probably neither of these guys are going to really affect your toys or positively help your toys if you're a Tyreek Hill owner or you're a Jalen Water owner. Now, if you can pry Devin A-Chain away from the owner because he's freaking out, like I can understand that one. At this case, I already thought he was really good at football. I thought he was really good at football coming out of Texas A&M. I watched the game. He's really good at football, like contested catch downfield type of good at football. I did see the stat where he has more yak yards than he does receiving yards because they throw him behind the line of scrimmage and he gets downfield. So if someone is trying to get out from underneath that Tua thing, I can understand that. You're trying to buy him at that point. If you picked up Jalen Wright, and I did, I want to know what's going on with Mostert and Jeff Wilson before I let them go this week. And there's no news on any of these guys at this point on what's going to go on down the line. Now, Jonnu Smith, if you're hurting a little bit because of the Wide receiver situation for the Dolphins, he on 42% snaps had 7 targets. I don't know how consistent that's going to be. It's just there, whatever. Moving on to the Eagles, Barkley was at 90% snaps. Not going to talk about the drop because like not a real football channel, it's a fantasy football channel. In general, Kenny Gainwell was at 10% snaps, and the rookie out of Clemson, and I'm blanking on his name, I got to go look it up. Will Shipley was at 0% snaps in this one. Now, the only other really interesting thing with A.J. Brown out with a hamstring was Britton Covey from Utah went from 12% snaps to 32% snaps. So the two other guys that we're tracking, Dotson was at 92 or 72, 79% snaps. He only had 1 target. I was hoping that Johnny Wilson from Florida State, the rookie, would be up there. He was at 27% snaps, only 1 target. The guy that was like really disappointing in all this, 97% snaps, Dallas Goedert. He couldn't be the number 2. So like, yeah. And I would have been rolling him out if I would have had Dallas Goedert, thinking that like I was going to get a chance at a spike week when it comes down to that. Kirk Cousins in this game, yeah, he's not 100%. I thought that like he would at least be serviceable. I imagine if you're wondering that he will get more comfortable and probably stronger as the season goes on. So if like you're selling, you're selling low, definitely, because I think there's a possibility that these guys could get better with 29 pass attempts. Now, again, across the league, passing is going to be down. So know what you're getting out of these guys. Like Bijan was down 75% snaps. Again, the bigger issue is 21% snaps. Tyler Algier, he was effective when he was on the field, 9 for 53 and another target. So again, I'm cuffing. And if he's one of the guys that's available on waiver wire, like, yeah, he should be stashed at the bottom of the bench. Like, you're probably going to get a league winner if you get a Bijan injury at this point. Now, Drake London kind of salvaged his day with a touchdown pass late. Darnell Mooney, 100% snaps. Like, again, going to probably be limited with how he's rolling in the offense. Like, if he doesn't get that spike week, he's just in that wide receiver 3 wasteland that's out there. So there's guys that are like, I'm going to be more interested in him. Kyle Pitts, again, know what you're paying for when you went out and got him. I'm not going to get Kyle Pitts unicorn season. That's everybody because of the league-wide stuff. Still going to be a top 10 tight end. He's going to have the ability to score touchdowns on any given week. And there are going to be Kyle Pitts weeks. I would probably guess it at this point. All right, moving on to the Giants. Devin Singletary, 79% snaps. So this is probably one of the few games where the Giants were actually in it. 16 for 95, a touchdown, a rare Giants touchdown. And that goes along with another fumble lost in this game. Tyrone Tracy was consistent when it came to, and I have him right here because I was going to talk about him, consistent when it comes to snap share. So again, didn't get more targets and didn't get more carries, but still on the field 21% of the time. So he is a stash when it comes down to that. To either eat into Devin Singletary because of the season or because there's an injury. Malik Neighbors, and I talk about this, like, know what you're buying when you're getting them. Like, the offense is bad. You're going to have spike weeks. You're also going to have like sub 40-degree days. It just depends, like, can they keep enough volume to him on a week-to-week basis? There are probably going to be teams that are going to be generally taking him away. He can take any one of them in the house. So again, like, yeah, this is why, like, generally, like, don't panic on guys. And then Theo Johnson, this is like a deeper thing. Stayed on the field 79% of the time. Yeah, he's got the possibility if they can get some offense going that he could be a unicorn. Tank Bigsby, he had a shoulder. He did play special teams. Dearness Johnson was the guy who came in to do the work, the 28% snaps when it comes down to that. Brian Thomas, like, did see a pretty ugly drop that he had. I would like the Jaguars to try and get the football to him more. That wasn't what was going on in the game. Some of what was going on, and I did watch like the snaps. Trevor Lawrence just isn't looking at him on, he's not the first look read in the offense when it comes down to that. So like, that's the problem with that. Now I can bring this up when we talk about like snap shares. If you're into that type of thing, he was down to 73% snaps, relatively consistent. Gabe Davis, 95% snaps. Christian Kirk was up to 88% snaps. Gabe Davis had 100 air yards. Christian Kirk had 72. Parker Washington was at 22% snaps. That's a little interesting to me down the line. Evan Ingram was a scratch with a hamstring during warmups. Now, again, with some of the tight ends that are out there, and I was talking about this before, Brenton Strange, 2nd-round draft pick 2 years ago out of Penn State, like, he's good at football and he's a blocker. He goes up to 68% snaps, 6 for 3 for 65. So again, I don't know how consistent this would be. It would be in the range of like streamability, especially if you can catch a touchdown pass. Now, moving on to the Jets, like Breece Hall, he's a unicorn. That's the long and short of that. But, and here's the asterisk, Braylon Allen, 35% snaps, up from 18% snaps, 7 carries, cashes one of them in the red zone. He also goes 4 for 2 for 23 and a touchdown, and it cashes another red zone opportunity in. So my thoughts on this is may have standalone value, may end up turning this a little bit more into a timeshare than me as a Brees owner would like. Definitely league winning cuffable at this point. So like if he's available, he should be on the bottom of everybody's bench at this point. Now I did see that and I can bring this up because I just cleared him out. Did see that the Jets are running a lot of quick game. That's like three-step drop. That means that Aaron Rodgers getting the ball out early, which means that Garrett Wilson has to win with Yak. Not going to get the air yards downfield. Now, this will change down the line and bring him up with Big Mike Williams. Goes from 18% snaps to 65% snaps. Once he starts pulling coverage, or at least he's going to either take advantage of them trying to take away Garrett Wilson, or Garrett Wilson is going to take away of what Mike Williams can do at this point. So this offense will unlock, I think, now as the season goes on. Jahmyr Gibbs is still online for that legendary season. 7 targets in this one, 62% snaps. I got to roll down here to him. He had 2 red zone carries to go along with 4 red zone targets. Montgomery had 3 red zone carries and 1 red zone targets, even though he was at 35% snaps. Now, Sione Vaki, I was expecting like a little bit more increase in snap share, but he did have an opportunity in this game. So he's probably a cuff. I hate to break it to everybody. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 93% snaps, 19 targets. Don't know what's going on with the quote-unquote leg injury that he'll be good with. So this is just another indication that like Jameson Williams may end up being a league winner. 11 targets in this one, 92% snaps. Now, Khalif Raymond, the wide receiver 3, his snaps were down. Tim Patrick, he's good at football. He was up to 39% snaps. So would not be surprising that down the line that Jameson Williams snaps go down slightly because Tim Patrick is on the field. But again, like right now, with the sun god and who knows what's going on with the injury, Jameson Williams is like his value goes up slightly. So again, like buying whatever on Jameson Williams after week 2 is probably not a bad idea on this one. All right, Packers. Who knows what's going on with Jordan Love at this point? Malik Willis, he's going to have some streamability because of that rushing upside. He was better than he was with the Titans. We generally saw this in preseason work with Malik Willis. Now, Josh Jacobs, 67% snaps, 32 for 151. I don't know how you're buying him from anybody. Marshawn Lloyd, he goes on IR, which is fine. So this means that like you might want to think about Emmanuel Wilson being a cuff to Josh Jacobs right now down the line. Jaden Reed, if he's going to be in wide receiver 3 land, maybe fringe wide receiver 2 land, he stays relevant as long as Malik Willis is there. He went like 2 for 37 in the rushing game. So like he can still theoretically get it done even with the pass volume down. Romeo Doubs still going to be the safe guy in this offense. 79% snaps, 3 for 3 for 62. If Dontavian Wicks is available, this is another guy to be looking at stashing. Relatively consistent snap share. 4 targets, 3 for 26, and a touchdown. So again, like I don't know. Christian Watson is going to be another guy I think is just going to generally be in that boom bust wide receiver 3 range. If you're wondering about those guys, Tucker Kraft, 80% snaps, down from 96. Not entirely surprising because of game flow. They were really run heavy. Luke Musgrave up to 44% snaps. I'm still stashing Tucker Kraft, waiting for Jordan Love to come back if you're into that type of thing. All right. Bryce Young gets benched. This is why I would be buying pieces of the Panthers offense on the cheap with the red rifle. You see like spot start week 3. He does 23 fantasy points last week. So like, who knows what's going to go on the offense? I don't care if Andy Dalton's good. I don't care if he throws like 6 interceptions. What I care is, can I take advantage of other people depressing the value of the Panthers because they don't think they're good? So right now this moves Chuba Hubbard, 58% snaps, 15 total opportunities back into the RB2 range. This also means that Jonathan Brooks, if he's available, like we can start like stashing him on the bottom of the bench again with the expectation the offense can't be as bad as it was under Bryce Young. Now, and then if you're wondering, Miles Sanders was at 42% snaps, but I don't think he's relevant down the line. So, just holding on to him until Jonathan Taylor comes off IR. Now, Deontay Johnson, 94% snaps, probably a buy at this point. If you can get him for a bag of chips at this point, like who cares? It goes to Adam Thielen. I'm not interested in, even though he's at 94% snaps. Jonathan Mingo was at 63% snaps. Xavier Leggett was down to 42% snaps, but, and here's the asterisk, getting a hold of this offense while it's cheap, to see what goes on with Xavier Leggett. He's the first round draft pick. He did have 7 targets week 1. Whatever the Panthers are doing, if I can get a piece of it now and it's not cost me nothing to be wrong on, I'm okay with. Jontavian Sanders, like he was at 50% snaps. Tommy Tremble was back. He was at 46% snaps. 4th-year tight end out of Notre Dame, good athletic measurables. I don't know if he's ever going to break out, but again, like deeper leagues, maybe you're thinking about him down the line. Moving on to the Patriots. So Ramondre, I did see a post on Reddit, like he's, I think like the best graded running back or something like that. I don't know how consistent this is going to be down the line, especially how I saw like they play Thursday night and like most of the Patriots offensive line was on the injury report. So 72% snaps, 21 for 81, 1 touchdown, check down monster with the 5 targets in this gun. So in this case, what I would be looking at is Antonio Gibson theoretically being able to get a bell cow. So I would be stashing, I would be cuffing when it comes down to that. 24% snaps, 11 for 96, and 1 target. So again, that's there. Now, Jolin Polk, they got him a carry. He had 3 targets and a touchdown. So like, got to remember that eventually we are expecting that Drake May will take over the offense, and the offense may not be as conservative because they can throw it down the field a little bit more with Drake May. So the expectation that Jolin Polk is slowly but surely being the number 1 on the offense. So league winner Jolin Polk is probably not on the table. Solid wide receiver 2 Jolin Polk might be at 60% snaps. The only guy that outsnapped him was KJ Osborne at 75% snaps. If you're wondering, you had like Tyrone Thornton at like 46% snaps and Pop Douglas at 56. I don't care about those guys. Javon Baker, there's a good old KJ Osborne at 75% snaps. Javon Baker was active and he had 9% snaps. So this is another guy to be tracking on. This would be the league winner down the line. He is special in a way that I don't think Jolin Polk is. Now, Hunter Henry, I talked to one of my co-managers who's in another league. He was asking me about this. Not going to be a good offense. Don't know how many red zone opportunities you're going to get. Saw the tape, a lot of scramble drill. Still theoretically could be the number 1 on his offense, which means he's going to have fantasy value. I don't know. I don't like these ugly guys unless I need a streamer. Jaheim Bell, the athlete, 1% snap. So again, maybe down the line, we could maybe see that occurring, the flop, especially with Drake May, probably more of a dynasty thing. Our boy Gardner Minshew tied for 2nd when it comes to passing yards in the NFL. So yeah, doesn't really matter how the sausage is made. He's getting it done. Zamir White's a hold, 63% snaps. You're looking at 13 total opportunities. So it's the 63% snaps. This is probably a coaching thing more than anything else. Alexander Madison down to 22% snaps, but he did have the touchdown carry in the red zone. Now, the other thing to be looking at why I think this is a coaching thing is you keep Amir Abdullah on your roster to do 2 things: play special teams and do pass blocking. Well, he didn't even do his pass blocking week 1, 13% snaps week 2. So again, that kind of tells me that like the usage of Alexander Madison was probably on the fly and not intended. And Zamir White is probably going to be in that 60 to 70% snaps that we thought he was going to be. Who knows what's going to go on? Like he also had a fumble week 1. Again, trying to figure out what's going to go on. If there's a week to roll Zamir White, it may be against the Panthers this week. And then moving on, Brock Bowers, unicorn, 68% snaps. Michael Mayer at 62% snaps, but 9 for 9 for 98. The problem you're going to get with Brock Bowers is going to be like a lack of receiving touchdowns. So I don't know if I would necessarily say buy, but I don't know if anybody's going to be selling him at this point when it comes down to that. Moving on the Rams. So it doesn't matter what I thought about Blake Corum. Doesn't matter anything else is going on. All that matters is the Rams are not a good offense. So even though Kyron Williams did 91% snaps week 1, 79% week 2, he had 3 targets week 1, 5 targets week 2. He's not efficient because the offense is not good. And if he doesn't fall in the end zone, you got like a low grade RB2. This is the volume based stuff. So, do with that with what you will. This was a blowout. Blake Corum did finally see the field, 15% snaps, 8 for 28. I don't know how any of this is going to go on. Now, whether or not Cooper Kupp goes on IR, who knows? We probably won't find out till Saturday because they'll wait till the last possible minute. Demarcus Robinson, you want a wide receiver 3. He's probably going to be that guy. Tyler Johnson, I don't care about. You do you when it comes to that. Jordan Whittington, I would just do to say I was right. Tutu Atwell is going to have a certain amount of value within the offense because he's going to be the theoretical speed guy. And then Colby Parkinson, like vacated targets tend to go to running backs. That would mean that Kyron Williams would be the beneficiary of Cooper Kupp and Puka being out. But the offense isn't good. All right. Moving on to the Ravens, Derrick Henry, he's consistent at 46% snaps. If he doesn't get receiving work, you're counting on him falling in the end zone. He fell in the end zone again. Justice Hill is going to have some type of fringe value in Devils leagues because theoretically he can get receiving work. He's going to be on the field more, it looks like. When you're wrong, you're wrong. Zay Flowers, 89% snaps, 11 for 7, 91 and a touchdown. And I can bring this up so I can talk about this a little bit more about how I was wrong. 83 air yards on those 11 targets. So that means some of those were probably big boy routes. They just weren't like check down monster routes. And this is the more important thing, red zone target. That's how his touchdown came. So yeah, when you're wrong, he's a wide receiver 2. Rashad Bateman, he's going to stay in the wide receiver 3 range. 82% snaps, 4 for 3 for 40. He's going to have spike weeks. Surprise, surprise. Mark Andrews, know what you're getting when you bought him. 63% snaps, 5 for 4 for 51. That 63% snaps is not entirely, it's something we could predict ahead of time. He does have some health issues, so like that's not surprising. 49% snaps for Isaiah Likely. Again, the idea that you're going to get a consistent tight end 2 at 66% snaps is probably low. Still going to have like certain amount of fantasy value. All right, Derek Carr. Talk about this in Chasing the Dragon. If the Saints are the best offense in football because they're going to be scoring the most touchdowns, he's going to have value. That's the long and short of it. Alvin Kamara, league winner. Remember with your AJ Apex guys, they tend to wear down as the season goes on. Just be advised on that one. Otherwise, league winner, also going to have a legendary outcome season. Rashid Shaheed, if he's the number 2 in this offense and they're scoring a lot of points, doesn't really matter if he's boom bust. He's going to be in wide receiver 2 land when it comes down to that. Still tracking Mason Tipton, rookie out of Yale, 4.3 40 guy, stays consistent at 25% snaps. Now, Taysom Hill, if you're wondering, avoids quote-unquote significant injury in this one. Foster Moreau over Jawan Johnson, he stays consistent at 80% snaps, no targets, so who cares? And then Geno Smith. Again, I don't know how much I would trust Geno Smith in this offense. There's going to be Kenneth Walker weeks. I don't know how much they're going to be having to throw 44 times in a game. And I don't know how much you're going to get like Geno Smith. He does have the theoretical possibility to do some dimbly bimbly. But again, it really depends on how desperate you are and how much ahead of the curve you want to be. Now, no news on Kenneth Walker, but Zach Charbonnet, 96% snaps. Even if he wasn't efficient, that was the New England Patriots, like Gerard Merrow's offense. Like, it's not surprising that they were going to take away the running game. But what you were getting is the 5 for 5 for 31, and he fell in the end zone. DK Metcalf, 14 targets. JSN, 16 targets. Tyler Lockett down from 7 targets week 1, but up on snap share. And then Noah Fant, 81% snaps from 75% snaps. He's going to be consistent. What this generally looks at, if we can go from a 2-week pattern, is who the defense says beat us with this guy. The Seahawks are going to beat them with that guy. So like there are probably going to be Noah Fant weeks, and you're also going to probably get like JSN down weeks and DK down weeks. Now, the question with JSN is how consistent we can get with targets. Again, if he can get about 7 targets a week, he is going to be a weekly play. Right now, like, would I be rolling him after this week? Absolutely, trying to chase that dragon. But he would be the guy that like he was going to be a wide receiver 2 range of outcomes as opposed to Tyler Lockett, where I didn't think that Tyler Lockett had like he was fantasy viable if I was trying to win my leagues. So that would be the difference between these guys down the line. And Noah Fant is still going to be a streamer if you're in that type of thing. All right. Steelers. Justin Fields looks like he's going to be the starter for week 3. I don't know how much I'm going to be chasing this because they're going to be like really conservative. Najee was down to 45% snaps. He did have 19 total opportunities in this one. I want to pull this one up with the Steelers. He had 2 red zone carries or 2 red zone targets, 1 red zone carry. No, he had 1 red zone carry, period. And then Jaylen Warren had 1 red zone target. So in this case, like it does look like the difference in the usage was partially because Jaylen Warren was coming off that hamstring. Cordero Patterson was at 6% snaps in this game. So Jaylen Warren has looked like he's going to be the safer floor guy because he's going to get the receiving work. even though he may not get the red zone opportunities down the line, and Najee is going to be a volume-based RB2. They're still going to have fantasy value. They're mostly going to be based off their ability to fall in the end zone. And again, if I was wanting the safer floor guy, it would be Jaylen Warren, because he's going to likely get like 2 to 4 targets a game. George Pickens, yeah, I wouldn't be concerned on this. I was looking at this like you're looking at 2 touchdowns that were called back because of penalty, and then he also had like air yards that were nullified by penalty too. So like, yeah, he's going to stay in that like wide receiver 2 land where you bought him. Arthur Smith is bad. 58% snaps for Pat Freiermuth, 4 targets. So he's going to stay like fringe streamability wide receiver or tight end. So Joe Mixon, your guess is as good as mine on what's going on with his ankle. I'll go over here to Cam Akers. So he comes in the game. This would be the guy that I would say would be the cuff, because Dameon Pierce is out with a hamstring that is quote unquote making fast progress, whatever that means. Now, Cam Akers, he fumbled, and then Dare finished the season or finished the game off at 32% snaps. So again, if I'm being sneaky, Cam Akers would be the guy that not only I would be cuffing Joe Mixon to, but I would be expecting to play next week. Now, who knows what's going to go on with Dameon Pierce and his hamstring? Who knows what the snap shares will be if Joe Mixon is out? Your guess is as good as mine when it comes down to all that stuff. Now, Nico Collins, he does look like he's a wide receiver 1. I'm not going to overthink that. The question becomes like how consistent he's going to be down the line, because Stephon Diggs is going to be, they do all appear to have their roles. Stephon Diggs is going to be like the get a first down guy, and Tank Dell is going to be the air yards guy. The main question is Nico Collins going to have those sub 40-degree days like he did last year, or if he's just going to be pure wide receiver 1 the rest of the way down the line? So Diggs is going to have value. Tank Dell is going to have value. If you're wondering about that, again, how many spike weeks do you want? Tank Dell probably going to get like 4 or 5 or something like that down the line. This is a little interesting. Revin Jordan was at 51% snap week 1, 44% snaps week 2, but they signed Irv Smith to the practice squad. What's that mean? I don't know. Will Levis does Will Levis things. Would be fantasy viable because of the nimbly bimbly if he could just not turn the football over, but then he wouldn't be Will Levis. Tony Pollard, if you guessed on Tony Pollard and with Tajay Spears maybe being out this week, you may get bell cow Tony Pollard, but he's already close to league winner at the price that you spent on him. Looks like 23 combined opportunities this week, and 6 of them were targets. So again, the bigger problem becomes like bad offense. Who knows how often he's going to have the ability to score touchdowns in this offense? So maybe a buy, maybe a sell. Either way, bad offense. Calvin Ridley, the same thing. Like he scores on a 10-yard rushing touchdown to go along with 6 for 4 for 77 and another touchdown. Again, bad offense. He does appear like he's the number 1 in a bad offense. So who knows? Sam Darnold, league winner. I'm not going to say a lot about this. If he's available, I probably would be snatching him up. So league winning Aaron Jones goes away, 61% snaps, not efficient on 9 for 32, did lose a fumble, 6 for 5 for 36, nothing to shake a stick at. And then Ty Chandler, 35% snaps, 10 for 82. So if he's efficient on his limited opportunities, we can guess that his opportunities will go up. And then this could end up being a 50-50 split. At the very least, we could say if the Vikings are one of the better teams in the league offensively, this is a lottery ticket, may have standalone value, definitely going to be the cuff to the Aaron Jones owner. Now, what's going on with the pass receivers? I don't know. Justin Jefferson goes out with a quad. Jordan Addison may play this week. Jalen Naylor would be the guy to be paying attention to. Theoretically, and I want to be a little spicy on this one, Justin Jefferson out, Jordan Addison out, would theoretically say that like you could be looking at like top 10 Jalen Naylor because there's nobody else to throw to in this offense. Johnny Munt was the tight end at 70% snaps. So again, vacated opportunities tend to go to running backs first, but then somebody else has to get thrown the football. And if it's not Jalen Naylor, it's going to be like Brandon Powell or something like that. At like, where's he at? 59% snaps. Trent Sherwood at 30% snaps. So again, to reiterate, roster your cuffs. Trey Benson looks like he's rosterable for the James Conner owner lottery ticket. Jermaine Burton and Erick All for the Bengals. Think about stashing those guys. And then what's the last thing I have written down? Oh, buy cheap on the Panthers right now. Some of the other things are like just general stuff going on out there in fantasy football land. But that's after waivers for week 2. And maybe I'll get another video out before the Grift on Friday.